Imagine, if you will, a bootleg copy of Salo that suddenly sprouted arms and legs and started running around smearing bodily functions all over the earth. Congratulations, you've just imagined Uwe Boll. In 2006, the infamous German filmmaker took a brief hiatus from torturing poor innocent video games to write, produce, and direct an original piece titled Seed. A serial killer story with a focus on capital punishment and extreme nihilism, it released in 2007 and proved just as tortuous as his previous work. I should be careful what I say before he challenges me to a boxing match, for I warn him, I've seen Rocky V more times than any man ethically should. Just you try and sue me for defamation.
Sue me for what?
Defamation. The plot is rather unoriginal. As evidenced by our protagonist's sideburns, Seed takes place in the 70s and is a revenge tale between the police and a very prolific murderer, the titular Max Seed. He's a nasty piece of work, blatantly prolonging his victim's suffering for as long as possible, for no reason at all. So it's a major victory for the cops when he's apprehended. With a rap sheet as long as Willem Dafoe's Dingus, it's no wonder that the state signs off on his execution. The trouble is, much like the aforementioned Dingus, the prison's electric chair has not been functioning all that well recently. Ah, screw it, who cares? If at first we don't succeed in killing this horrible bastard, fry again! Well, by law, you can't just keep zapping people until they croak, so they illegally sign Seed off as deceased and bury him alive. Lo and behold, the bugger breaks out of his coffin to exact brutal revenge against the prison staff and the policeman who brought him in. Pretty standard stuff, really.
It's boring.
That goes for most Nut himself. Sorry, that goes for Max Seed himself, too. Visually, he just blends into the Thomas Hewitt era of slashers. A big-boned, hulking mute who dresses exclusively in dirty country wear. A tragic backstory involving a childhood fire is hinted at, but never developed or examined, while his Donkey Kong walk cycle deflates any terror. If there's anything to take away from him, it's his unwavering savagery. Most of the early kills are filmed in a very dark room with a cameraman who can't keep still. So the much hyped violence is all off-screen or obscured. Weak. However, Boll secured additional funding halfway through the project, so Max Seed's exploits are given the chance to become exploitative. The most notorious of these kills is, of course, the hammer scene. The cameraman mercifully manages to stay relatively stationary, while the framing and lighting at last have no interest in obscuring what people are actually here to see. And to be fair, it's pretty damn grim. Peak Seaman, sorry, Max Seed toys with his bound victim, circling her, like a cat with a mouse. He begins using the tool with little taps, each tap progressively harder and more painful. The dull thud of every blow makes you squirm. It just goes on, and on, and on, as the shot leaves you lingering in the same helpless position. Eventually, the attacks become incredibly violent, which is uncomfortable to watch, to say the least, though the impact is lessened by the shoddy digital effects. Credit where it's due, at least the intent was there. Seed's other most devious on-screen crimes are shown quite early on, forming a genuine hatred against the villain. The police watch grainy footage from the killer's hideout. In an escalating format, we watch as a bug, a rat, a dog, a baby, and then an adult woman all succumb to long, painful deaths in captivity, followed by their sickly decompositions. These scenes were created with the assistance of an equally sane individual, Olaf Ittenbach. As Boll fondly recalled during an interview with Skewed and Reviewed, the maggoty business was painstakingly achieved by using actual flesh. Over the course of 3 months, the wriggly beasts devoured their way through 80 kilos of the real rotting meat. Yum yum. No, it is effective, and as I said before, does really inspire a hatred for this killer. It also invokes a deep-rooted cynicism. What kind of a man would do this? This is fiction, but such horrendous figures have existed. Pass me the whiskey already. I will criticise them for going one step too far by concluding with the adult lady. Once you've just witnessed a heart-wrenchingly innocent little baby, confused, alone in this pitch-black hell, suffering this absolutely abhorrent end, the full-grown adult just isn't as shocking. As they say, once you've seen one time-lapse decomposition, you've seen them all. But the real controversy is born from the very first images of the film. Mr. Boll is outspoken in his support for PETA, and even donated a percentage of the profits to that organisation. That might be another can of worms, but at its heart, animal rights, fine, nothing wrong with that, of course. However, he used his connections there to source some footage of genuine animal cruelty and decided to open the movie with it. I will not show the footage here, not just because I'd be instantly kicked off YouTube, but because it is easily among the worst things I have ever had the misfortune of seeing. Without wanting to go into too much detail, the clips show a dog being violently abused, beaten, stomped on the neck, and practically skinned alive. Fucking horrible. Really fucking horrible. If you're going to boldly show such immoral acts, you better have a really good fucking reason to do so.
What was your childhood like? What was your childhood like? What was your childhood like?
From the same source as before, the director had this to say for himself. I wanted to show the world how fucked up humans are as a species. If humans were extinct, and only animals inhabited Earth, our planet would survive. The PETA footage demonstrates that humans are not intrinsically good. People kill mercilessly, without emotion, for sport, profit, and other forms of self-indulgence. After you watch the opening of Seed, your world will be permanently altered.
Thank you. That's all that I can think to say right now is thank you, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to thank you for this and for how fun you've made my life. And
he goes on to conclude that Seed is a statement on pure nihilism. Humans are better off dead than alive. We all die eventually, so nothing matters. He also claims the death penalty is just as bad as being a murderer. In reality, you can make such an argument, potentially. Countless debates over the years have been held on that very topic. But Uwe, if you're trying to tell me that a guy wanting to execute the world's worst serial killer for the sake of everyone's safety is just as evil as the guy imprisoning babies and starving them to death, I'm not buying it, and you failed in your mission statement. All you've done is ruined my day, you twat. Making a statement can be a controversial but important part of filmmaking. But if 95% of the film is a generic plot featuring one-dimensional characters struggling to act their way out of a paper bag, as the cameraman constantly wrestles with an off-screen wasp, no thank you. Almost all discussion of the film begins and ends with the animal cruelty segment. That means the actual meat of the film isn't worth talking about. How's that for a statement? It's time to give Seed some ratings between 1 to 5. In terms of how disturbing this film is, with 1 being your average gross horror film, and 5 being inescapably grim, I rate Seed 3 out of 5 electric chairs. The PETA footage alone is enough to rate it that high. I would be tempted to knock it down to a 2, due to how limp most of the film is, but the decomposition scenes and the hammer scene are enough to solidify that 3-star position. In terms of how good it is as a film generally, that's an easy 1 out of 5. I tried to watch this back in the late 2000s, but it was one of the very few films I've ever started but never finished. Well, now I have, and I can't say I'm any better for it. As the director implied, I'm probably, in fact, much worse off. Yoy. At least this isn't the type of trash that would ever get a sequel, oh son of a bitch.